the swag on. Get the swag on.
Good night, everyone. First, thank you, the family, for the invite. Thank you, Hugo, for helping me sort out the commute from London. Thank you, Remy, for doing the lecture in English. My French is appalling. I'm Brazilian. I could do the lecture in Portuguese. Portuguese? No? Okay, I'll do that in English then. I thought that today, following Remy's talk around, design frameworks and guidelines and how you distill your DNA to guide you through all the sorts of challenges, I would kind of go down into more anecdotal adventures that I had in my design experience. I have this obsession with, I suppose for the last like 4 or 5 years, with this one expression, which I call signature experience. And this is a joke that my current boss gave me this t-shirt. So here you go, you found your signature experience. I thought it was a joke, but then I see him using this expression more and more in his meetings. So he's not admitting that he actually likes it, but I'll pretend it's a joke. And I'll kind of explain a little bit what I mean by that and maybe hopefully give you a few examples. So my career started in marketing, branding, advertising. That's kind of my early days, all sorts of campaigns, and I love that kind of stuff. I love storytelling, telling, how this product will fit in your life. But there was always, at that time, frustration for me that I was dressing the product, and I kind of wanted to say a little bit what the product should be doing. And then I started to poke around with coding and motion graphics and stuff like that, up to a point that I decided, you know what, I want to give up on the whole advertising thing. And I kind of ran into this marvelous world of R&D. My first experience with R&D was where I met these guys, Nokians. They're everywhere around the world. It's just a plague these days. You have Nokians everywhere. It was great at Nokia, actually. It was a great design school. We had all sorts of resources, research, and amazing minds. There was only one problem for me in the structure of a big company, was that I kind of was looking at the other side and I wanted to do some marketing now. I was like, okay, so the grass is always greener, right? So I started with marketing, and then suddenly I wanted to build a product, and then suddenly I wanted to do some marketing, and then I realized kind of probably the sweet spot for me is this world we call startup. Because usually you either, in a big company, you're either seeing everything and doing nothing, or you're doing something but not seeing everything. I wanted to do stuff, but I wanted to see everything, like from the beginning all the way to the end. So far it has been really great. I've done a few, that's been for the past 3 years. I've been involved with startups, and I get a little say on each of these things. And then I'm going to go back to my kind of obsession on signature experience. The reason for me, again, startups work well to find signature experience is that you can really dive deep into the value of that product or service or whatever, right? You hear a lot of expressions around user needs and value propositions and DNAs, brand experiences, and these are all great. You should always start with that, because you need this guidance, you need this anchor, this north, so you know where to make your decisions on. But there comes a time, and obviously thinking as a designer, you're going to have to make that tangible somehow, right? You need to create the experience themselves. And it's really, I mean, speccing a product, I don't know, I mean, how many of you guys are doing startup-related work today? Startups. Design background? No? No. Yeah, so I mean, you probably have seen like how hard it is to go through a list of features and specs and decide where you're going to put your time and where your user needs to put his time as well. Like, for example, if you look at a very simplified experience stack, you're going to have a search, let's say. You can be a cloud storage system, you can be a music library, you have a search, right? The guy's not going to remember your search, your service because of that amazing search. It's not going to remember your service because of that amazing login experience. I'm not saying that you don't have to be an amazing, you don't have to design an amazing login experience or a settings page, but you need to kind of pick your fights, right? You need to think, okay, if I want this guy to leave my product with one memory, what would that be? And that's kind of how what I call the signature experience. On top of that thing, you need to also think about when do you rely on a mental model or patterns that people are already used to, and when do you actually create something completely new. So I'm saying that you can have something that, for example, a search, and the only example you can remember search is Google search. They have their search as a experience. You know, when you have, like, you drop down the suggestions, you see that like a lot of advertisers use like the Google search as a tagline, because it became such a interesting thing to see what's going to be the suggestion as you type a word, what's going to be the next word that Google suggests you to type, right? So that became very signature. Or when you're actually going to create something completely new. So the guy actually has to learn how to deal with that interaction. It's obviously that top right corner is amazing. It's where you're going to have very disruptive stuff, but you can still do something really cool with something known, but it's still signature, right? So a few hints that I found for myself that work when you're looking for that signature experience. First of all, you have to think about that one key moment. So it talks to the user need, it talks to your brand value, but what is that one moment that will create that memory? It kind of works if you use either the start of that flow or the finish of that flow to put that stamp. And a few other things that help me out when I'm thinking about my signature experiences are, usually you have to go for something like touch, because you don't want like a heavy thing. I mean, because you want it to be addictive and repetitive. So you want that thing to be, oh, I want to do that again. I don't know if you remember these, you know that, I don't know, in Brazil it was super popular, this pen that had 4 colors. And you just like, click, 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 and then at one point you're just kind of switching colors just for that little click, just for that little like addictive click, right? And it became quite a big thing, at least in Brazil. So think about that. I'm going to talk about then a few examples now, from big guys to the small guys, and then talk a little bit about the stuff that I'm doing these days. So I'll picture the scenario, and then I'll change the slide. It will actually help. So imagine this. You walk into a grocery store, your favorite store. You grab your favorite thing, like say an apple. You walk out the store, and that's it. That apple's yours. No, you didn't have to reach for your wallet. You didn't have to go through the whole checkout experience. It's just magic, right? And guys that did that were Amazon. I don't know if you guys have tried a one-click purchase. So obviously there are some critiques around the one-click, like, oh, does it go into the whole impulsive, I'm going to make use of my Machiavellian influence on you clicking something. But it's what Amazon did with the one-click is that they did something that a physical store cannot do, right? At least that I know of. You cannot enter a store, grab a product, and walk away. Well, you can, but might not be on the safe side of doing it, right? So I'm sure there are people trying to tackle that issue, but this notion that the property of a digital store is the fact that you don't have to repeat the annoying tasks of reaching the wallet and stuff like that. It creates something pretty special. No wonder the one-click is a super controversial patent, right? I think for the big guys, Amazon is pretty innovative in the way they carry on pushing. They are putting a lot of money and time and talent on the whole Kindle ecosystem. I don't know if you guys tried the Kindle. The Fire has this new thing as well, which I feel that it could become quite signature, is the Mayday button. I don't know if you guys seen it. So you're using your Kindle Fire, suddenly you're stuck, and you press the Mayday button, and then someone pops in your screen. The guy pops in your screen, and then he goes like, talks to you, what do you want to do? The guy can then take over your screen and scribble in your screen, oh, you should do this, you should do that. So suddenly that whole And when I'm talking about that, I'm picturing my grandmother trying to kind of read a book in the Kindle, because we had this conspiracy trying to buy her a Kindle for Christmas, and she said, no way. But you know, Amazon, it is trying to like lower the boundaries to that kind of experience and lock you in, of course, into their ecosystem, right? These guys here, I'm the first one to raise my hand and say I'm not a Snapchat generation. I don't know if any of you are. I still don't get it fully, but they're definitely doing something really interesting. The notion of exchanging content as this ephemeral moment, that things that you capture, they have a lifespan. That is really interesting, right? And one design detail that they really got it right, and kind of blows my mind that no one's done it before, is when you go into Snapchat and you want to capture that moment, at that point, you don't know if you want a picture or a video, right? You just go, I want to grab that. So if you want a picture, you just tap the button. If you want a video, you just hold the button. And I remember Nako like going crazy with this kind of toggling between camera and video, and these guys, like with one button, they create the notion that it's about the moment, and you make the decision there and then if it's a snap moment or if it's a video moment, right? So that's, again, pretty signature. This is the last project that I was involved in Nokia. It was called Migo, and we were tasked to do the platform for the high-end devices. And it was a great project. It was a great team. So the team that actually left that project did the project that Remy was mentioning, the Arthur music system. So loads of challenges there. We had to create a high-end, scalable platform that could have all sorts of APIs for services to plug in, and it had to be as simple as possible. And at that point, there was this whole movement towards this thing called chromeless, which is remove as much as you can from the screen and let content shine through, right? So make sure that if that button is there, there is a reason for it. And one thing that we wanted to do was, could there be a way of having a device with no physical buttons on the top? And if you look at your iPhone, there is one button that takes you home. And that's because that is probably the most important interaction. If you're building a platform, you want to make sure that there's a safe way to exit wherever you are. Whether the app crashed or you're lost in the app, you know what, I want to go home. Get me out of here, right? And how could we do that without a button? So we came up with this gesture, which we called swipe. So from any edge of the device, you can just swipe the UI and throw it away, and then you're back home. And it was beautiful because for the first time, we were also trying this curved glass, and the whole product was curved around the edges. So the notion that your finger just kind of slides from the edge and throws that UI away and you're back home, it was really simple, but it was really signature. And that became actually like the core thing in like marketing material and stuff like that. Another big area trending these days is wearables. I don't know if anyone is doing anything to do with wearables here, but it's definitely like a big thing, right? These guys, Jawbone, they are in that race, and they have this wristband called Up. Up is quite similar to a lot of the wristbands out there. It's a lot to do with tracking of movement. You go back to your data, and you kind of become self-aware of, wow, I'm moving too much, I'm moving too little. So they kind of all have very similar things so far, but the one thing that I find Up has, which is quite signature, is this, they have this thing called smart alarm. So you set up your alarm for, let's say, 7. And because it has this system that knows when you're in a deep sleep or in a light sleep, it's a little bit to do with how you move and stuff like that. If you set for 7, what they do is 15 minutes before 7 and 15 minutes after 7, they try to find a way where you where you're in a light sleep. So if you're really heavy sleeping, they wait a little bit until they wake you up, all the way to this edge, right? But if they, for example, 10 minutes before 7, you're kind of starting to move around, you're going to this light sleep mode, they wake you up. And what I find cool about that is that it kind of reminds me, you know, that like mom waking you up to go to school. She takes her time, she pokes you a little bit, then, no, he's still asleep, no, I'm going to give him another 5 minutes. And then okay, now it's time to go, because it's 50 minutes past 7. So it's really, really nice to find these, again, signature moments that make that product become beyond a product, it's a companion to you, right? So the past year and a half, almost 2 years, I've been working in a startup called State. We're based in London. I'm heading design there. And the idea of State came from 2 brothers, Alex and Mark. Alex happens to be the co-founder of Jawbone as well. I did use the Jawbone example because I really like it, not to do with trying to make good kudos with my boss. But the idea behind State is it's really cool, and that's why I got completely hooked up to the thing a year and a half ago. So they both thought, you know, at that time, or maybe it's even still today, the emerging networks, mainly the social networks, they had one limitation. They have one limitation. They are limited to your social circle, right? So your Twitter, it's going to be as big as your followers are. Your Facebook, it's going to be as big as your friends are. And for a lot of stuff, that's perfect. You want to do your kid's birthday, you don't want to invite a stranger, right? You want to invite your friends. So hence a social network. But there's something that they wanted to do, which was, what if you want to connect with people that have the same interests as you have? They could be your friends, they could be beyond your friends, but there is a limitation on these networks, right? So what if we could create a network around the things you care about? So imagine you are a movie freak. You state about a movie, and because we know what you're talking about, we have this way of understanding the meaning of your opinion. We create for you a network so your voice on that specific interest gets heard. So the next day you want to talk about politics or a specific political agenda, let's say. You want to know if people agree or disagree with you. You want to make sure that this thing that's really important to you gets heard. Again, we create that network for that one interest. So no longer it's about who you know or who wants to follow you, but it's about that one interest finding a place, right? So we have this kind of saying that opinions are revolutions grown up, because we want to make sure that every opinion counts and every opinion has a place. And the way we do that is through this one signature experience that we're trying to kind of tweak, which is our stating an opinion and getting something out of it, something really special, I think. So when you're State, you tell us what you want to talk about. You're a star, amazing, coming here. So you write a little bit more. So I found it super fast. It's incredible how in 2 hours you come from London to Paris. You go from a pint to a good glass of wine. And you can write a little bit more. And the fact that we know the meaning of your opinion, we know the structure of your opinion, and you went through, let's say, some extra steps to tell us that, we can give you a lot more back. So for the first time, when you post something, you change your status or something like that, you post and you have to wait, right? You have to wait for someone to reply. You have to wait for someone to, yeah, this means something to me. When you state, real time, you get a reply from the system. You get to know who agrees and disagrees with you. You get to know where you stand. You get to know this plethora of sentiments, right? Another cool thing is when you state, we can offer you further content around that opinion, which is connected through like like-minded people. So if I dig the Eurostar, and kind of someone at one point that also has very similar opinions to me mentions an article about Eurostar as a positive thing and stuff like that, I get to discover more content around my interest, right? And of course, going back to the social limitation, the more you state, the more you find people that are like you, essentially that disagree with you, but there's something to be said around the connection that you have with people on stage, this kind of social expansion with every overlap, every opinion that you make. Suddenly you realize, I'm finding this guy, tomorrow someone's going to find me. So there is a reason for you to stack this opinion profile, right? We've launched a month ago. We've been on R&D for a little bit over a year. There's loads of stuff that goes behind the scenes to build this thing, like understanding sentiments, taxonomy of topics. It's pretty robust, but the point to the user is you just want to find the stuff that you care about. You want to express yourself the way you want to express yourself. It's really incredible. We have these close to 11,000 opinion words in our system, and we know all the meaning of the words. We know when you say brave and courageous, they are kind of very close together. We know when you say good and when you say very good, you feel more positive about this, right? So all these subtleties, we know that. And it's good to see from those 11,000 words, we already like 7,000 were used. So people are not just saying like awesome and cool. People are really kind of digging deep into ways of expressing themselves. It's really, really nice. I brought some snapshots of some hot topics that were talked about on stage. It's kind of some interesting stuff. Google Glass was pretty big. It's to do a little bit with our early adopters, of course, right? Everyone is big geeky in the system right now. But the cool thing about looking at these snapshots is you can spot that, first of all, people are generally pretty positive. But when they're negative, you spot there and then that the aspects that they feel negative about are to do with maybe aesthetics. People are saying ugly. Some people are saying scary, creepy. So it's to do with pervasiveness. It's to do with privacy. And people are saying geeky. So again, it's to do with maybe this thing hasn't been, like the value of it, the perception of Google Glass to the general public hasn't been pretty crystal clear, right? So like Google takes something like this, they know like the problems to tackle. If they kind of tick these negative boxes, maybe they're going to be in a better place, right? That was a pretty big topic. Edward Snowden, that's a big topic in the UK, obviously because of the, NSAs and GCSEs and the PRISM program. What's interesting about that, apart from maybe our crowd so far have been quite a rebellious crowd, everyone's pretty positive with Snowden. We have, when you have a cluster saying brave, people are saying hero, people are saying courageous. But then we do have a kind of sparks of reckless and hypocrite, right? But interesting when we actually overlap that graph with PRISM itself, the surveillance program, there's a lot of people being positive about Snowden, but positive about PRISM as well, which is quite interesting. Like people kind of support the notion of governments, well, at least in this very small experiment, right? Yeah. They kind of support the need for security programs, but at the same time, they want these things to be transparent. So it's interesting to see like topics that overlap and the sentiment around it, right? Lastly, this is kind of a guy that's probably the least popular in our system. We definitely don't have believers in state. So he's getting a lot of dicks and naps and a lot of foolish things. But it's interesting as well, even on things like this, is that in the beginning, he was a total douche. So douche was the big word. getting Bieber. But then, as you saw at some events, like he getting arrested with the drinking and driving and the whole like getting messy with the police. Kind of the negative words that creep in were to do with like foolish, immature. So even that sentiment was kind of refining even more around, like, you know, before he was just a douche, but now he's a douche and he's immature as well. So maybe someone should just help the guy, right? So these are kind of early experiments with how we can aggregate data of this structured information. I should actually kind of switch to, I actually invite you all to create your account there. It's data.com. So I'm gonna hopefully the system will make me proud in real time with you guys. So here you go. Hopefully nothing embarrassing. So these are the things that are trending up for my interest. Of course, it kind of gets better as your profile increases. So if I state about, and that's going to be an obvious one, but I'm going to state about Paris. And I'm going to say, and that's it. So, you know, I make sure that I capture that opinion. And if the connection works well, let's see, it's loading. So it's pretty positive so far, and that's coming from a UK company. That should be pretty well received. So you get all the clusters around Paris, and oh my God, there's just like one overrated bad sentiment over here. Totally not me. But you see as well that the majority of people are pretty positive about Paris. You kind of see your neighbors. A lot of people, you get to meet a lot of people that agree with you, and then you get like the contrasting opinions. And of course, you can drill down and meet these guys and make sure that, you know, you tell them they're stupid, that Paris is not overrated. And then you start to see things that are connected, and these connections are generated in the conversation. So someone at one point mentioned Musée d'Orsay. You kind of find other, you know, you find a movie connected to Paris. Again, that's probably mentioned during a conversation. So probably someone that, again, loved Paris, loved this movie, and says, you know, you kind of should check this movie if you don't know. Vancouver, I'm not sure about that. And then you kind of find new people here. So you get to meet this guy that agrees with you in Paris and probably agrees with you with other stuff. So, you know, other cities that we talked about and we agree, kind of movies, all movies. So that's the point. It's finding a rewarding experience for a new experience. So first time you get to say what you think, and real time you get a reply. That's our signature experience. I hope you guys try it and send comments as well. That's it.